Cuban border guards have killed 4 crew members of a U.S.-registered speedboat following a shootout in Cuban waters. France has sent an aircraft carrier to Sweden to boost defense in northern Europe. Cuban border guards have killed 4 crew members of a U.S.-registered speedboat after the vessel failed to stop when ordered in Cuban territorial waters and allegedly opened fire on the police boat. Cuba's government said later that the 10 passengers were armed Cubans living in the U.S. who were trying to infiltrate the island and unleash terrorism, identifying some of them as wanted individuals by Cuban authorities. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that he was made aware of the incident and that the U.S. is now gathering its own information.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
The incident comes amid heightened tensions between Washington and Havana after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed an oil blockade on the Caribbean island for what he said was its role in aiding Venezuela's former president Nicolas Maduro's regime. The U.S. has since eased some of these sanctions, which have plunged the country into a historic economic crisis that has brought power outages and food shortages to the Cuban population.
The European Commission has asked Ukraine to accelerate the repair works on the Druzhba pipeline to defuse the energy dispute with Budapest. Hungary's double veto has paralyzed a 90 billion euros loan for Kiev and a fresh round of sanctions against Russia. At the same time, the Adria pipeline, also known as JANAF, which begins in Croatia, has emerged as the most viable alternative route to ensure that Hungary and Slovakia continue to receive oil supplies without interruption. JANAF is prepared to meet the full annual needs of refineries in Slovakia and Hungary, the operator said on Wednesday.
There is an alternative supply route that can be used by Hungary and Slovakia, and this is the Adria pipeline from Croatia. Croatia confirmed at the meeting that non-Russian crude oil is being transported through the Adria pipeline to Hungary and Slovakia.
The two landlocked countries have insisted on their right to receive the Russian crude oil they have contracted through the Druzhba pipeline, which is currently non-operational. According to the European Commission, Croatia is assessing the possibility of whether it can lawfully accept Russian crude at its port, both under the EU and US sanctions.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán says Ukraine plans to sabotage the country's energy systems, announcing that he has deployed troops to safeguard critical infrastructure. The new measures are set to include increased police patrols and a ban on drone flights in some areas. The accusation escalates an already tense dispute between the two countries, which has undermined the EU's pro-Ukraine consensus. Orbán convened a meeting of the Hungarian Defense Council due to what he called a Ukrainian oil blockade, after crude deliveries via the Druzhba pipeline were suspended on January 27th, in what Kyiv said were technical issues following a drone strike on the facility. The Hungarian premier slammed Ukraine over the suspension, which is still in effect, claiming it's politically driven and not technical, before announcing his defense moves. Hungary and Slovakia, who together are outliers in the EU's efforts at unanimous support for Ukraine, blame Kyiv for the pipeline's outage, which supplies their refineries with Russian crude. For much of Finland's eastern regions, life has been on hold after the country moved to shutter its border with Russia in December 2023. Helsinki accused Moscow of hybrid warfare in orchestrating a surge of 1,300 migrants across the border, an allegation the Kremlin denied. In several areas, business has ground to a halt after the decision. Many small cafes, restaurants, and shops relied heavily on the daily border crossings as a core part of their revenues. At its peak, almost 2 million people cross the border into Finland a year, but now there are none, suffocating local trade. Many have had to reduce operating hours, significantly cut back on costs, with employment being the main slash, or close entirely. Unemployment in Finland is already the highest in the EU, sitting at 10.2%. But in border areas like Tomajarvi, that figure sits at a dramatic 18.2. Some local officials had complained that there hasn't been enough government support to ease the burden on their communities after the closure. But while many complained of the difficult economic conditions plaguing their areas, they believed the decision to close the 1,300-kilometer border was justified.
France has sent an aircraft carrier to Sweden to boost defense in northern Europe. Named Charles de Gaulle, the nuclear-powered warship is France's biggest, and its deployment is aimed at strengthening bilateral ties as well as regional cooperation on defense.
En fait, effectivement, c'est un signal très important. Effectivement, ça montre que la France est capable déjà de déployer son groupe aéronaval, qui est un instrument majeur de projection de puissance. C'est un instrument qui démontre notre interopérabilité avec nos alliés.
The boat will play a key role in NATO exercises this spring in the North Sea and Arctic, as alliance members seek to beef up their presence along Europe's northern and eastern maritime flanks. The exercises come at a time of increased Russian maritime activity in the area and shifting U.S. interests in the Arctic.
The authorities in the Larnaca district have been put on full alert following the rapid spread of foot and mouth disease. On Tuesday night, an urgent meeting was held with experts from the European Commission, during which detailed information was presented on the epidemiological situation in the 10-kilometer surveillance zone. On this basis, it was decided to start vaccinations immediately. The first vaccinations will be carried out in the most dangerous areas, known as red zones, while each unit will be managed according to the data collected, combining vaccinations and, where necessary, euthanasia of animals to prevent further spread. Cypriot authorities emphasized the need for immediate cooperation from livestock farmers and compliance with protective measures in order to limit the epidemic and avoid greater economic and health consequences for the sector, which is one of the main sources of income for Cyprus. At the same time, some 20,000 vaccines are coming to Cyprus from the occupied territories, where it was first reported the epidemic of foot and mouth disease, and European Commission said that more than 500,000 vaccines will be sent to Cyprus. Lockdown measures and disinfections are ongoing, with authorities stressing the need for everyone to comply.
The killing of drug cartel boss El Mencho sparked violence in parts of Mexico this week. The unrest caused travel disruption in popular tourist destinations such as the resort city of Puerto Vallarta. Many tourists were told to stay indoors, while flights to and from the airport were cancelled or rescheduled.
Started about 8:15 in the morning. Series of explosions. At first I wasn't quite sure what was going on, and then the next thing, burning cars, burning. Yeah, and that went on till early afternoon.
Actually, I was in my room watching period 3 of the hockey game, and then it went out because all the TVs went out, right? And so we went out to the pool, and I was trying to get it on my phone, and that's when we all heard the explosion. We did not know what it was.
Flight schedules and activity in popular vacation spots have since largely returned back to normal. And on Wednesday, the U.S. Embassy in Mexico stopped urging its citizens to shelter in place.
Online retail giant Shein has opened 5 new stores across France today, including locations in Limoges, Angers and Reims. The expansion follows a month-long delay triggered by a series of scandals surrounding the fast fashion brand's ethics and safety. Last year, the company was reported for selling illegal content ranging from Category A weapons to banned drugs and prohibited toys. The allegations have prompted the European Commission to launch official proceedings following a failed attempt by the French government to suspend the platform. While the previous opening in Paris saw chaos and protests, today's inaugurations have been notably quieter. However, the brand's arrival has caused a corporate backlash at the BHV department store, where around 100 premium brands have now terminated their contracts. Household names, including Dior and Guerlain, are among those cutting ties in protest against the retailer's controversial presence.
Sunshine, mild weather, and temperatures reminiscent of May. After 40 consecutive days of rain, France has been experiencing an exceptional heat wave since Tuesday, breaking records for the month of February, according to National Meteorology Agency, Meteo France. The southwest of the country is particularly affected. In Biarritz, the temperature has climbed to 27 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees above normal averages for this time of the year, and in Orthez, a reading of 28.3 degrees was recorded. Temperatures are expected to rise further in the coming days, according to the agency. Experts attribute this phenomenon to the increase in greenhouse gas emissions, which are causing global warming.
These colors are gases responsible for star formation at the heart of our galaxy, the Milky Way. The photo was published on Wednesday by the European Southern Observatory. It reveals unprecedented details of these gases.
So this gives us a window to understand how stars and planets form when they're really close and packed together, which we think is how most stars in the universe formed.
The photo focuses on a region of cold cosmic gas more than 650 light-years across. It is the largest image ever taken by the ALMA antenna network in the Atacama Desert in Chile.